Everybody, welcome back to Final Resonance TV and a brand new episode, a special episode for the Smithsonian event for Eddie Van Halen. And if you've seen this online now, the views on this interview are 9.6 million views. It's seen all over the world. I saw it at the exhibition in the Met, and I've seen it at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. This event still plays out, a part of his life. And so I have three guests with me today who were there, who were the lucky guys who wrote a question down and got to ask that question directly to Eddie Van Halen. I've got Jeff Pulinski from Buffalo, New York, right?
Buffalo, New York, just right outside, yep.
Okay. And John Lambdin and his son Kyle, and y'all are from Rochester.
Well, we were originally from Rochester, but from Northern Virginia.
Okay. So were you close then at that time?
Yep, we were right there living here in Northern Virginia at the time of the interview.
Yeah, what people don't know, is we were all there together, but we really never hung out. I mean, other than,
Yeah.
we knew each other were there, but it was just in passing. And so what I want to know from you guys is, first of all, just like your story, like Jeff, let's start with you. When did you hear about it? How did you get your ticket? The whole thing. And then, you just tell me about your journey down and all that.
Yeah, so I was at work and I saw it online. I don't know if I saw it on Blabbermouth or I saw it on Van Halen News Desk that they were going to be giving out tickets the next day. So the next day at work, I was ready. I was like, hope nobody calls me or bothers me at work because I want to get these tickets. And I luckily got them. And yeah, he didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know how it was going to be set up. It was free tickets for everybody, so that was cool. We left pretty early from Buffalo. It was February. So the weather wasn't great. And we drove through, I think, 3 blizzards just to get there. And we got in line. We were pretty close. We were probably maybe 20 people back. I didn't see you guys in line. I didn't know you at the time, but I met you after.
Right. You wouldn't be looking for us either.
I wasn't looking for you. But we've been driving all day, so I wanted to go get some coffee. They had a little cafe at the Smithsonian there. So I went out to get coffee, and it was, they wouldn't let me bring it back in.
Okay.
To the line. My wife was waiting because I was there with my wife. So she's waiting in line and she's texting me, you better get back here because they're handing out index cards and they want people to ask Eddie questions. So hurry up. And I'm like, they won't let me in with my coffee. So she came out, took the coffee. I went back in and wrote my question on the index card. So luckily I got picked. Right. I kind of knew too, like the question I asked was, I asked him how Wolfgang has influenced him and inspired him since he started playing in the band. And I knew that if I asked a technical question, they wouldn't pick it. They wanted something that was more personal. So I was like, I'll go with something along those lines. And luckily they chose me.
That was cool too, because that question, we'll talk about the questions and everything too as we go. But that question did elicit a nice response from Eddie, a very emotional response, and it was really cool to see that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, John, you guys, how did you hear about it? Get the tickets and then come down?
Well, actually, we live in the DC area here, so I was looking at social media, and I had seen something like a month or two prior to them actually announcing the tickets.
Yeah.
And I quickly jumped on that, looking at it, going, what is this? Ed speaking with this, was it Zocolo?
Yeah, something like that.
Was the company that was sponsoring this, what it means to be an American.
Yep.
And I immediately looked at this and said, I got to check this out. So I actually contacted Zocolo.
Oh, you did? Okay.
I contacted them directly, and they said, well, you need to talk with people at the Smithsonian because they gave no information about tickets or anything at that point.
Yeah.
It was just an announcement.
Yeah.
So I actually got in contact with a person at the Smithsonian who actually ran the event. He told me everything that was going to happen.
Oh, wow.
He told me that there was going to be a Q&A. She told me when the tickets were going to be available. She told me everything I had to know. And I'm like, I'm in. I am not missing this in my backyard.
Right.
And sure enough, got our tickets, and when I got there, we got in line, and I had already written questions. I had already prepared ahead of time because I knew that they were going to
I got you.
have a Q&A. So hurried up, took the cue cards, wrote down our questions on the cue card, handed them in, and got selected. And I'll let Kyle tell his story about being selected, and actually Robert, the guy who asked the instrument question, that's my buddy from here in Virginia. So it was actually kind of funny that the three of us got 3 of the 6 questions.
Yeah, I noticed that when Jeff had answered, I think after Jeff's question, he had another. That's when he did his question, right? He said something. Is that right?
I believe so.
Is that right, Jeff?
Yeah, I don't remember what question he asked, but I just remember the guy after me was also from Buffalo.
The guy from Buffalo, he ended up asking, I can't remember what the question was, but my buddy ended up asking Eddie the question of what instrument.
Oh, yeah. Would you play? Right.
You chosen. You had a choice of another instrument.
He said drums, yeah.
So it was ironic that the 3 of us had, all 3 of us got a chance, but Kyle got a unique opportunity because...
Yeah, coming to these type of events, you never know. I didn't know necessarily the background. My dad had the inside scoop. So as we get there and we're standing in line and everything, they're, hey, we're going to have you guys fill out cue cards and stuff. And I think the coolest part about just that whole experience was just standing in line. And as we're by the doors, you hear, the famous Horace wail off the, his guitar. And we're like, Eddie's going to play. Eddie is going to play for us. And we're standing there and it's just such a surreal moment, growing up in a household that, loved music, and with being an independent singer-songwriter, Eddie's been a big influence for me. Even though it's a different genre than what I perform or produce or record, it's still a big part of my musical journey. And so being able to be there in line with my dad and my brother and, my dad's buddy, and just being able to, experience that. And then, it all kind of was pretty surreal, and then when they said, okay, here's, you're going to ask the questions, here's the one selected, and to be selected, just like with my dad and his buddy, it was a pretty cool moment because you never knew that opportunity to have a face-to-face interaction with Eddie Van Halen would ever happen. And it did. It was pretty cool.
Well, actually what had happened is the guy that was standing in line from us, he was from Cincinnati.
Okay.
He drove all night to get there.
Right.
And his question was picked. And he goes, I am too tired. There's no way I can do this. And he turns to Kyle and he goes, here, you going to ask my question? And Kyle goes, wow. Yeah, I'll do it.
Little different, because and my question was actually, what was kind of crazy was literally the question this guy wrote. And so it was really cool to have that personal connection, even though I may have not written on the cue card. I still got to ask the question of my heart of, how do you keep that creative spark, which I know we'll go in later on. So
yeah, well, that's amazing. That morning, I think it was the morning they released the tickets. I'd like you guys. I think I heard about it prior a little bit, and then it popped up one morning. It may have been Van Halen News Desk, but then I had a lot of trouble finding where to get it at. I was looking everywhere, and I finally got them, and then this is a weird story. I don't know, this might be totally different. I got a message in my email that said, you're good to go. But then like a week later or something like that, I got one said that you're not good to go.
Oh,
wow.
Yeah, there was weird emails that came back and forth about that event. I remember I had a similar.
Sounds familiar. I think so.
Yep.
Okay, so that wasn't unusual. I just I'd already bought my plane ticket, so I was like, "Whoa!"
It was almost like they made it sound like you weren't guaranteed to get in.
Yeah.
Like it was almost going to be capped off. Which really, when we got there, we were lucky we got in because you figured there was only maybe 100 fans that were there.
It's free.
It was special, VIPs, family, news, or whatever.
Yeah, if you guys have watched my other one with Brad Pulinski, and I had Brad Pulinski from Guitar World on and Chris Gill, and I asked them about all that prior stuff that we didn't see as fans, and they get into that. And there was, when we walked in, were you guys not surprised about how little seating was left?
Yeah, I was thrilled because I was like, this is perfect. This is intimate. This is small. And this is something Ed has never, ever done.
Right.
That was what I was worried about. I was like, there's no way Ed's going to fly out to freezing cold Washington, D.C. to do, because he doesn't like to speak publicly, I don't think.
Right,
You know,
right.
I was worried he was going to cancel. I was like, we're going to drive out there and he's just not going to show up.
Yeah.
But-
Luckily, it was all tied around a special event with him being recognized by the Smithsonian. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was the thing I think that Brad and them had talked about, was that, this is the kind of event that he appreciated. He appreciated that idea that he was being recognized as a cultural impact, and his story of being an immigrant coming to the United States and all that too is part of the, the circle of the story. And then he get to talk about his childhood and everything a little bit too, which is, I think, something that, I think he appreciated and wanted to talk about it. He hadn't really, like you said, other than in the pages of Guitar World or wherever, in interviews, he hadn't done a live Q&A ever that I remember.
Yeah.
I mean, other than TV, or whatever, but not something like this,
I don't recall him ever doing something this in depth, this detailed.
Yeah.
To where it was just a very nice, simple, let me tell you about me.
Right. It was cool, right? We were lucky. Like that's the first thing I thought too. Not only, not when we walked in, I thought, gosh, I didn't realize there'd be so few fans allowed, and that we were that special a group of folks that got to see this. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a few. That's like, what you said, 100. I don't know. I mean, the whole thing probably held what, 200 maybe.
Yeah.
So you had the other 100 were, people that were there for him that were business or family or whatever.
So when I knew I got my question picked, I
Uh-huh.
knew I was going in.
Right. Exactly. So we all get there. We're in line. I'm in there. I got there pretty early, about 3 hours before, I guess.
Yeah.
And the line, you guys, where you said you were, it seems like we're all right there in that front area in the front foyer, right? Is that right?
Yep.
So that was a line snaked around the corner. I'd never left my spot because I was on my own, but I didn't see how long that line got, so I didn't know how many people were behind me.
Nope.
Either. So I didn't realize what kind of crowd we would be bringing in anyway at that point. So we get in there, and we weren't told. I mean, I guess maybe you were, John, that we were going to meet and greet, or was there?
No, yeah, I did know about the meet and greet. So
Wow.
I was thrilled because I knew the whole setup of what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know because they really hadn't broadcasted anything about it. It was very low key and hush hush. We saw a quick little blurb, and then it got out to the news desk, and then they ended up posting some stuff about it. But otherwise, there was nothing about it. And so I was quite surprised when she actually, told me everything that was going to go on, and that she was the head contact, and her and I had emailed back and forth.
Huh.
And she kept me up to date on what was going on. I'm like, this is sweet.
Right. Because I still, at the moment of the final, the final question, didn't know whether we were going to meet him or not. And then they said that your guest of honor will be out there to meet you in the lobby or whatever. So then I knew, but I guess I figured maybe it would be small, and maybe this would be an opportunity to meet him, and I had to come. I mean, there's nothing going to stop me from coming.
Nope.
So
this was definitely a one in a lifetime opportunity to meet Edward, like in this type of a setting.
Right.
I don't remember there being too much direction as how to meet him. Like people just kind of like filed out and didn't know where to go, and some people formed a line. So I just got in that line.
Yeah.
Some people didn't. I feel bad for them because they missed out. A lot of people didn't get to meet him. So
I don't think they knew exactly where they were going to put him. Based upon what I saw, they were kind of trying to figure out where to put him to do it and how he wanted to do it. They didn't like it. It's like not that part when like they had a table at first, and then they switched to just a greeting line, more or less.
Yeah, I didn't know if they had tables out there. I don't know if he was just going to be walking around mingling. They didn't really say what.
Right, they didn't say. Yeah, that's true. And then the line did form, and the Matt Bruck was there, of course, helping, and his I believe his attorney and A guy who's been with him forever and ever was the other bigger guy on the other side of him.
So was that Bruck at the front of the line? I thought Alex's son Eric was there.
He might have been, but I did see Matt Brook. He's in the video.
Okay.
That I shot.
Very cool.
Yeah. And
it was interesting when we came in there,
Mhm.
because you didn't have to deal with this, but the other Jeff did, is when we came in, they split us and told us questions. If you're asking questions, you have to sit in these rows.
Yeah, that happened to me.
Right. They put us in specific rows and you couldn't sit on one side or the other. And so my buddy was split onto the other side, so we couldn't all sit together.
Oh,
I could have had a lot closer seat. And they were like,
Exactly.
because you're asking a question, you got to sit back here. So I was like halfway up and we had to sit on the end. But I think they had our seats marked as VIP too, which
Correct.
was
Yep.
cool.
okay. Yeah, because I only was probably 5 rows from the back, maybe. And I kind of came in the early part of it. Like this is what cued me in that there wasn't that many people behind me. There wasn't that many seats, and I was 5 rows back already from the wall. And I thought, where are all the other people behind me going to go? Well, there's not any.
Right.
Not that many. That's when I realized how few fans were allowed into this thing. So that was really cool.
Yeah.
So before this event started, so as they were getting everyone, bringing them in, sitting and stuff like that,
Yeah.
I'll let Kyle tell this part of
There
the
you go.
story.
Yeah. So what was really cool about this is I said, Dad, Alex Van Halen is sitting in the front row, and this is our only chance. I said, I'm going for it. Are you coming with me? And he goes, yep. So we run down to the front row and we're like, Alex, will you take a quick photo? And he goes, yeah, for sure. Snaps one photo and then legit security's like, no more, everybody. You guys need to go, but it was super cool because it was just like,
Yeah, we got about 30 seconds
30
to talk
seconds.
with them.
but who would have thought, and sometimes you just got to go off those quick premonitions. And let's put it this way. I wasn't going to let that one slip, at that point too, Woofy was sitting right next to, Uncle Alex, and just pretty cool. We didn't get to interact with Woofy that night. But just that small little snippet, we got the one photo, and then they're like, okay, get back to your seats. And we're like, okay, we already got our seats. Cause my brother stayed up at our VIP, seated area where we had to ask the questions, and very nice 30 seconds. That's all I can say.
And your pictures will be inserted into this, when I do the edit. And we'll be able to see that photo. That's a really cool photo that you got. Yeah, and it's a funny thing about the whole interaction afterwards is that I filmed you guys. Jeff, did I film you? Or I don't think I filmed you, did I?
No, I don't. Never saw it on your channel.
Yeah, I got these two.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because I saw one of your pieces that you did.
Okay.
I was watching one of your videos and I said, oh man, he was at the event because you posted your picture. And I'm like, I've got to reach out to this guy.
Right.
And so I reached out to you and we started talking, and, you saw a picture or something like that. And you said something to the effect, I think I might have some video of this.
Right.
I'm going, dude, if you've got this video of this would be priceless.
Right.
And then sure enough, you had our entire exchange greeting with Ed. And it really is priceless.
I was standing there behind you guys, and I had my iPhone, and it was about to die.
Oh.
And I'm thinking, I better save it. But I had this little video camera with me, a little bitty tiny camera, and I was filming with that, just some stuff just to have, for myself. And I got another girl that I met later through a friend, a guy from Nashville that I've known for a long time. He told me about a girl that was there that he knew, and it turns out I filmed her.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and so she didn't know this, but I knew, and he knew that this was the girl. And so I contacted her, I reached out to her and said, hey, I've got video of you meeting Eddie Van Halen. She's the one with the belt. She's showing him her Van Halen belt and all this stuff. She's giving him a big hug and all this stuff. Yeah, Joette's her name. And Joette's got the video too. So it was kind of cool to be able to give that to whoever, wanted. It's out there. I mean, it's on my channels, but I don't know. If
Big thank you. That was pretty sweet.
Hey, it was an accident, but I'm glad it worked out.
It was an awesome accident.
Right. I would think, I wish somebody had an accident with mine. Yeah. But it was so cool,
Yeah,
cool to
I
be
met you that night there too. That was the first time I met you. I
Yeah.
don't even remember.
Yeah, I mean, it was
Flew in.
there was a there's a bunch of people like after we did the exchange, with him, each of us went through. I kind of like hung, and
Yeah.
back a little bit and just watch everybody have their moment, and I don't know if I filmed at that point some too. I can't remember, but I might have. But it was cool to watch all that, and then you could tell it was like, okay, surely we've gotten everybody. Those people were going. I think people were going back around and getting in line. He was like, we got to go. So they finally pulled the plug. But when he walked off, I mean, I don't know if you guys were there for that, but when he walked off through the hall, everybody spontaneously applauded.
Yep.
Yeah.
He kind of waved back to everybody, and it was pretty a cool moment, just sort of a spontaneous.
Yeah, the one thing I was super grateful for is, in our interaction, the kind of cool thing about meeting Ed for me was I just went in for a handshake, but Eddie decides to pull me in for a hug. And my brother was able to capture a quick photo of that. And I never would have thought, all I did was in that little quick minute interaction, all I wanted to do was say thank you. Mm-hmm. And all I did was I just missed, hi Eddie, thank you. I just want to say thank you. And he pulls me in for a big, quick hug. Just something priceless, something that never would have thought growing up listening to as many Van Halen tracks that were playing in the car to, wishing. And, I had the opportunity to see Van Halen twice in my lifetime. Mm-hmm. Just to be able to put those connecting points together and say thank you was such a surreal moment for me. And it was something that really touched me too, that, at Eddie's passing, I got the text from my dad, and I was actually in my college management class, and I was sitting in the back of the room and was paying attention, I promise. But I got a quick little ring on my phone, and I looked down and, the news of Eddie's passing, and I just immediately just went flush. I actually left class, went to my car, turned on Eruption, and I'll be honest, I just lost it. And I just kept looking back at that photo and just thinking I had that just one opportunity I never thought I would have had to, say thank you, but most importantly, a hug from Eddie Van Halen. Just a super surreal moment. And just like I said, big thank you for catching that on tape. A great accident at its finest moment.
Yeah. It's an amazing thing, the whole day, the whole situation, like you said. And I think the guy right after you, John, he said, he started out by saying, I just want to say thank you. Mm-hmm. What you just said, Kyle. Yep. And, I think that was kind of the whole thing. Like, we all just wanted to have that opportunity. I think every Van Halen fan all wanted to have that opportunity, and we were lucky enough to get it that night. And, as I posted that photo, and I'm sure you guys have too, people are like, gosh, I wish I could have been there. I wish I could have met Eddie Van Halen, and we had that opportunity. It's almost like, almost feel guilty a little bit about being able to, but because everybody wanted to, and you finally got your opportunity and you finally did. It's like, wow.
Yeah, that's the one person I never thought I would meet too.
Really?
Yeah.
But when I met him, when I was walking away, I remembered I brought the sticker I wanted to give to him. So I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah, the no bozos.
I was walking away and I stopped myself. I said, I turned around and I gave it to him, and he laughed so loud, and he stuck it and he put it in his pocket. And I was wondering what he did with it. Was it in 5150 somewhere, or did he?
There's all kinds of stories about things like that where he does takes. There was one guy who made him that. You've seen that picture of a stand that's painted red, white, and black in his studio. Somebody made that for him, and I forget the story behind it, but yeah, he took it and he had it in his studio for years and years. There's a photo that somebody drew of his dad and his son and him together. You've seen that photo probably, the three of them. It's up on his wall.
Yeah.
A fan gave him years before, and then when they had the party at his house in 2006, a lot of people took pictures inside, and that was on his wall. And I had seen it years before, when the fan had given it to him, and he kept it. It's amazing. He had a warmth to him, I think, that night in particular, because he was in such good spirits, health, everything was coming together at that moment. Is that how you guys felt? You felt like you hit him at the opportune moment.
Right. Yeah. That was the best time to meet him, I think, because he was, at the top of his game. you know, he looked great. He was playing great. So great spirits.
I guess you guys saw him at 15
Exactly.
on the tour. Everybody saw him. We all saw him at
Yeah.
15, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I agree. I mean, I just, you know, having been a fan since 78, you know, I bought the vinyl when it came out the spring of 78.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I've been there the whole long ride,
Mhm.
and seeing him go through some of the torment that he had gone through, you know, and at that point in time, you could really tell, and it was even in his way he spoke and the way he talked. He was in probably, I think, the best place he had been probably in all his life.
Right.
And I really felt he was really in a good place. You know, everything in his life was going good. You know, he was, you know, he had beaten some of his demons. He was in a good place with Janie, you know, and with Wolf. And I just think he was just in a happy place. You know, his medical problems really weren't giving him a problem at that point. And it just showed. I mean, I just felt that he was in good shape in all aspects.
Yeah, and you know, it's such a weird thing to think that only 5 years later he would be gone. He mentions this, and I just had scanned a little bit of the interview a minute ago, but he mentioned not retiring. He said, "I don't," something to the effect of, "It's not like I'm waiting to be 65 and retire."
Exactly.
He said 65, and his father his father died at 66, I think it was. So he actually died younger than his father did. But yeah, it's amazing, right, that we were able to capture that moment where he was in such good health. Then he comes back around for the tour, and I don't know about you guys, but it was the guitar playing and the sound was, it was one of the best I've ever heard.
And the set list
Right.
that Wolfie put together for that tour was fantastic.
Right. It was
Yeah.
a killer show. So mine was outside. What about Charles?
Yeah, mine was outside.
Yeah.
Outside.
We were outside, and the fun thing with that show is on my phone, I still have the videotapings of Eddie's guitar solo. And I'll go back once in a while and, love looking through old live show clips and everything. And you turn it on and it's just pure gold. He's just unloading that night. And it was pretty cool. That night, I'm pretty sure ours was a sold out show.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. Where was yours at? What amphitheater?
Jiffy Lube Amphitheater. It's in Bristow, Virginia. So from where we're at, it's about an hour or so south.
Okay.
So
Jeff, yours?
It was at a Darien Lake Amphitheater. It's kind of like a Six Flags kind of place.
Okay.
So
Yep, I remember Darien Lake when it wasn't a big park.
yeah, now it's huge. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, the outside, the guitar tone outside was, I had seen him every show. I had never seen Van Halen in an amphitheater. And so hearing that guitar sound outside, it just really, you heard every note. It was like, I told my wife, I said, I don't know if it's the stealth or it's being outside, but if it's the stealth, I want a stealth right now.
Well, we were sitting, we ended up getting tickets when I got our tickets.
Yeah.
I made sure I got my tickets right in front of the soundboard.
Okay.
Because I wanted to make sure that sound was coming right at me.
Right. And it didn't disappoint, did it? The guy that was mixing that tour, he was, I think, Black Sabbath's guy. And it was amazing, man. It was a way to go for that last show. And there's I have video as well of that. I have a video of my wife. She brought a sign for Wolfgang, and Wolfgang is like, throw me some pics. And then when he threw it, it missed her, and he whipped off his armband and threw it to her, and she got his armband that night. So the last show.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So we got Wolfgang's armband still. And it was quite a show, man. And going back to the Smithsonian, during what are the things that stand out for each of you guys during the actual interview, things that you were surprised by, or, that were your favorite parts?
I think a big part for me was just the inspiration that he is just to the young generation of musicians. The one thing that I loved during my question was, asking him, as years go on, how do you keep that creative spark? And the one quote that he said specifically was, "You can play music, but you don't work it." He goes, "But at times it's hard work to play it." And that really resonated with me because, for all these young musicians, picking up a drum set, picking up a guitar, starting to play piano, it just starts with that first move, that first strum, that first, beat or whatever. And, many times from your guitar teachers or vice versa, they always say, hey, you have to practice so hard. But to hear someone who his entire life has, led and been an inspiration within not only the rock realm, but just in general, it stands out a little differently. And I think that was the really cool part, is just he's been through everything that he has been in his trials, but on top of that too, his innovation within the industry, which is just inspiring just in general to young musicians.
Yeah, right. I mean, the stuff beyond the stage is there was a time where he didn't really he wanted to keep those things kind of as his things, but then as he went out and started to put out products and then eventually with the EVH line, I mean, he was the next Les Paul, he was the next guy that changed everything. And yeah, that's an amazing thing. Jeff, your question, like we were talking about, elicited quite a response from Eddie about his son, talk about that a little bit.
Well, I just wanted to, I was really impressed at how open he was about everything and so well spoken.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody knows how much he loves Wolf, so I knew that he would really expand on that for the audience. And
tell you what, when he got into how his son kind of helped him get together in that last in 07, 08, when he still had the problem and he kind of straightened back up. I think we all kind of knew Wolfgang was the stabilizing force with Eddie, and he made that clear that night, and that we were pretty sure that was the only reason he was going back out on the road. There was the desire, right. And I think Wolf wanted to do it. And of course, I'm sure Eddie wanted to go with his son. He just had to get everything together and be healthy enough to go do it, and he did. He was very, I think you guys probably feel exactly the same way I do about Eddie, but there was always a warmth to Eddie that maybe not every rock star or musician has. He always had that smile, and I think that thing there was something about it. You saw it all that night when he was with us, right? Yep. When he hugged you, and when all of us walked up to him, and he just had that. You just wanted to hug the guy.
Yeah.
He's always so humble too. Like, he never bragged about anything.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
Nope.
Right. He had such a warmth to him. And when I was walking up to him, I mean, I guess we all went through this. Like, what are you going to say to Eddie Van Halen? You got your 1 minute or whatever it is going to be to say whatever it is you want to say to Eddie Van Halen. And, I had screwed up an opportunity to shake his hand when I was 22 at the NAMM show. He walked right in front of me, was shaking hands with everybody, and I froze. I literally froze. I couldn't reach out to him. I just starstruck, right? So it's been all those years that I had screwed that up, and I thought, well, this time it's not gonna happen. I'm gonna look him in the eye. I'm gonna introduce myself, and I'm gonna do all that. I made sure that I thanked him, that's pretty much all I wanted to do, and I think most everybody did. But yeah, for you guys, what were your thoughts before you went up to him?
Oh, I was thinking the same thing. I mean, I had been waiting 37 years for this event.
Right.
to just you have your kid dreams that you're a rock star, but now as an adult, a parent, stuff like that. Just all I want to do, and all I said to him was, I just looked at him. I said, Ed, all I can say is thank you. I mean, the music just was, just such a huge part of my life, and it's still a part of my life. I mean, it's just, here I am, getting mature in age. I'm still a huge fan. I mean, there's just the music, I can put it on. Doesn't make any difference what album it is. It takes me right back to the first day I heard it, or whatever. But I just simply wanted to say, Ed, thank you.
Yeah.
I did that, and he looked at me and he goes, "Thank you."
Wow.
I mean, what do you do to that?
I mean, what do you say? You know, it's the same thing when I said that same thing almost to him. I said, you know, I've been waiting 30 years for this, you know, to meet you. And he was just like, wow. And I know it wasn't like, like everybody felt that way. And I'm sure he heard that 100 times that night from every fan that came up. But I think he was finally ready. You know, Eddie was so humble. And there was that part of him that was, aw shucks, you know, I'm not really all that. He felt like he wasn't all that or something. He had a little bit of insecurity in that way. And I think we all felt like we identified with that part of him. Like we all feel that way a little bit. And to see him in his lifetime, we all could kind of see ourselves in him, you know, how he would not feel confident at times, or how he, we could watch him play stuff, like I told somebody last week, I said, I've watched him so long. I could tell when he played the last part of Eruption, whether he was in a zone or whether he was feeling insecure about it or what. You could see whether he felt like I need to get out of this quicker, or you could tell, right? You could tell those moments when he was feeling not 100% and I think we all tuned into this thing about him. He had that thing where all of us got it. Why do you guys think that was, that he touched us all this way?
I think one of the biggest thing kind of that speaks to me is that sometimes obviously words you don't have the right words to say, but music can speak that for you. Mm-hmm. And obviously through Ed, that was through his playing, through his harmonics, through, his style that he's created over, his lifetime. When words may not have been able to speak for what was going on, he let his guitar do the talking for him. Mm-hmm. And I think that's, one of the cool things is that music is such a universal thing. It touches each and every one of us differently. Whether you're listening to Eruption or whether you're listening to, Sammy or Dave, whoever you want to choose. And, the best part is that music hits you in the moment, and also, at any point of your day, when you listen to it. Mm-hmm. So I think, for me, growing up, listening to classic rock, listening to Van Halen, listening to Rush, listening to all those, great artists. And as I've grown up, and, created my own music, and on top of that too, just getting older, you turn on your favorite playlist. Today, I legit listened to the entire Van Halen Essentials, Apple Music playlist, and it was phenomenal because it took me back to those fun memories, And so I think the big thing is that when words can't speak, the music does. That's what Ed did.
Yeah, you're right. He definitely, that was his way of talking, and we all got that. Like from the moment the first album hit, it was like, bam, we all got that. I mean, somebody, we were talking about Goosebumps, the whole visceral response to Edward. And I had that experience, and most people that do, that have this with music. For some reason, that we gravitate towards certain people that have impact like that. And Ed had that magic, that thing that gave you the goosebumps. Like, what is this?
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I've sit there and we'll be listening to something, and all of a sudden something will come up, and I'll go, look. Yeah. I'll show him my arm, and sure enough, it's standing up, because I've got 40 years later, it still resonates with me.
And that wild. Yeah. Even he had that, he would have that experience too. Eddie did, and talk about that. When I saw Unchained the first time I ever saw them live was on TV. And that when that first note of the, where he's just hitting a drop D and the drums start to come in, there's just something that happened at that moment for me that was like, whoa, what is this? And then I'm changed forever after that. It's something that I know we all experience. Jeff, what was it for you, man?
First time I can remember hearing Van Halen was Dance the Night Away. When it just came out. I remember hearing that in the car with my parents. And it's crazy that I kind of remember that as being the first time hearing them. And then I think I moved on to what I think my favorite album at the time was Diver Down.
Yeah.
Well, that was around the age.
82. Yeah.
82. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
then I go back.
Same thing happened to me. Unchained video came out. It was sort of like in between right around Diver Down, there was some playing of that on Don Kirshner's rock concert. So
Exactly.
the first album I walked into the store to get, I didn't know what, you guys remember this, except Kyle, you wouldn't remember this. But when you were younger, they only played it once on the radio, and you might not, or the video, and you might not get a repeat of that for a while. And so I didn't know what song it was even after I'd seen the video. I didn't, it'd been a week or two, and I got my allowance and I head to the record store, and I'm trying to figure out what it was. And so I flipped the Diver Down album around, and you can see on the back the photos that look like the video. They're from '81. So that's what I thought, that album was the right album, and I bought Diver Down first. And so that's how I ended up with Diver Down. But Diver Down was a great album. It had a lot of, as soon as you heard Where All the Good Times Gone, that guitar tone coming in, you're like, well, that's the same dude for sure. I mean, that's whatever that I heard it's right there too. It's amazing, right? Crazy.
This is what did it for me. Sorry, I can't. It's not popping up, but
We know what it is.
Yeah, right. Well, Van Halen 1, yeah, I went back to that. Of course, I went right straight through buying everything that I didn't have. I mean, it was just amazing.
I was at my cousin's house, spring of 1978. I was 13 years old, and he goes, John, I just got this new 8-track. And so we're listening to it, and the first song that comes on for me was Jamie's Crying.
Oh, really?
I heard that and I went, whoa. I said, what is this? And then I started clicking through the tracks, and then I got the Running with the Devil and Eruption. And I said, see ya. I went home, got my money, went to the record store, and I bought that vinyl. It's not that one, but I got another one. Mm-hmm. And I still have the original vinyl that I bought that day in 78.
That's amazing, right? The power of that record. That record is such a perfect record, top to bottom. You can listen to that thing and just,
Templeman and Landy did absolute magic on that album.
They did, man. That album. I mean, I know Eddie wasn't a big fan, but we were fans.
Yeah. And the thing that's funny is on that album, okay, you have the picture of Eddie, looking so, angry and so mean. Yeah. Now, granted, his guitar playing was angry, mean. It was great. But really, when you saw all the pictures in Hit Parade or Cream Magazine or whatever those, Rolling Stone or whatever was coming out, he was always smiling.
Yeah.
He was always had that big smile on his face, even on stage. He just seemed to be happy doing what he was doing.
Yeah. Yeah. There was I don't know why it was that all of us guys just gravitated towards his look. He had, I don't know if it's just the perfect, rock guy or, I don't know what it was, but it was, to me, it was like, this to me is the archetype, that I think of when I think of rock god guitar players, when you see him and you see his looks and you see his style and you watch him play guitar. Just nobody quite like that. I mean, there were some great ones, but for me it wasn't.
I think what was cool too is the fact that obviously, his guitar playing spoke for itself, but as you're talking about image and stuff, let's be honest, when you see the Frankenstein and just in general, it's going to captivate you. The Stripe, series is just a phenomenal look. And obviously we've seen throughout generations with, the creation of the Stripe series EVH guitars. It's beautiful. I love the shark that you have in the background. That's one of my favorites.
Yeah, yeah, I love the shark too. Yeah, we're everybody's debating the shark's origins. I was in California this couple weeks ago, and I got to play the Chris Holmes guitar, if you're familiar with that, which was the sister to this guitar. And it was said it was Karina for a long time, or Limba, and of course that was kind of disproven. And so there's a lot of lore behind that guitar, of course. And it's such a cool looking guitar, though, right? I mean, look at it.
I love it. At some point, I'm hopeful to get an EVH or a Wolfgang into the collection, but With time, money, got to save up college.
Right. The shark. I had to have the shark. For me, that really got me was like it was like the tone that I had to have. As soon as I heard that riff, I was like, wow. I mean that's a great song. Goes back to a long time to the Kinks, but the Van Halen tone of that was just. They had that thing where they would always reinvent these other songs.
Yep.
Yeah. I love that. No good.
Van Halenized them, as it's been said, and they made them really cool. Everything. You really got me. But it's always been the tone I went for as a guitar player. Jeff, you still play all the time. I mean, tell me about your adventures in music. You do original stuff, and I've watched a little bit of what you done.
Yeah. I got a little side project. Well, it's my main project called Angry Jeff and the Engine Troublers. It's kind of a silly name, but I do everything. I play everything. I program the drums, but I write and record everything in my little man cave studio here. And so everything's on Spotify and iTunes. And I was in bands my whole life, and then it just got it gets difficult, maintaining members and stuff. So I disintegrated, and I was like, I can do this myself. And then just throw it on the internet, it's a lot easier. So I've been doing it for a while. So check out angryjeff.com.
Cool. Yeah. Now,
going back to the Smithsonian, though, talking about the Stripe Series guitars, after I got to meet Eddie, I got to meet Chip Ellis there.
Oh yeah.
So I was showing him my guitar, my Frankenstrat that I made. So it was kind of cool to show the master one of mine that I built, and he thought it was pretty cool though. He was a super cool guy.
Yeah. That Chip, he has been such instrumental in bringing those guitars, the replicas, even like the one behind the white and black that I made here behind me. I wanted to do that for me, just to do it, because after he passed, it's just everybody kind of wanted to do something. I don't know. Everybody had their own way of expressing that. And I thought, well, I'm going to go back and relive this again one more time. I did it in 2006, and I'm going to try to do better this time and really get the detail as close as I can. And it's fun to go back and do what he did and to take the pictures of those, iconic photos of Slow's Hours and whatever, and just kind of like spend time doing it. Like when I first started working on it, I was telling somebody the other day, it's been a while since I did a lot of sanding and that kind of work. And it's almost hypnotic. You get out there and you get out of your normal headspace, and you're just in this thing where you're just not.
Yeah. I made a Frankenstrat. I made the 78, and I made the Star. And I think about doing a Frankenstrat again, but I don't know if I have the patience anymore to do that. That's a lot of work.
Yeah, I've never done the red, white, and black, because I know how much work that one is.
I did that in 2009. I don't think I have the energy.
I have the Stripe series, the one, the relic version, and I have the first version that came out in 2004. That was the art series, first Charvels they made like that. I have the red, white, and black in that. So I have that, the Unchained guitar, which was the first guitar I ever saw him play. I had to have that. I mean, that was a major deal.
The circle guitar.
Yeah.
I got one of those too.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, it's like you don't know how long they're gonna put them out. Like that and the Star guitar, they kind of discontinued those, and now they're going all up like crazy.
Yeah.
I got the circle guitar on Reverb a few years ago, and I got it for like $600.
Wow.
Mint conditions.
Yeah,
nice.
Now, $2,500 or so, right? It's like
crazy.
His guitars are just, it's amazing how popular all his designs were and everything. So the Smithsonian, we were there, and then 5 years later he's gone. Jeff, we kind of talked about it a little bit, but talk about the day you found out about it and how it struck you.
I was working from home, and I was just about done with my work day, and I just happened to open up Instagram, and I saw Wolf's post, and I was just like, this can't be real. Like, I was in such shock, and just like everybody else, kind of bawled for a while. It still kind of stings. It's like I couldn't believe it. I was like, this has to be a dream, because it was just so shocking. Like, because you didn't hear anything about his health for a while, so you didn't know how he was doing. So that was terrible.
Yeah, it was terrible.
I was the same way. I was sitting right where I'm sitting at right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I just opened up Facebook or whatever I opened up, and literally Wolfie had posted it like 2 minutes.
Yeah, that's
It
when I
was the
saw
top
it.
thing on my feed, and I went, and I just kind of stood there. I looked at my phone, and I was just shocked. I was just like, I had a bad feeling that this was going to be coming because of so much silence in the VH camp.
Mm-hmm.
I
Right.
mean, something wasn't right.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of had hints that there was something going on,
Mm-hmm.
and then to get that, see Wolfie's message that morning, I was just I just walked upstairs, and I was just kind of that glazed look on my face, like I had had seen a ghost, and just said, "It just died." I mean, it's been such a huge part of my life, even though we're friends the day we shook hands.
Right. Right.
But just someone that I just admired. Um, and then all of a sudden, his time was up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's yeah, and the music ends. That's the end. That's the last album was the last album, and that's when it all hits you that wow, that was the final statement, and now what happens? Kyle, you kind of talked about it, but
Yeah. So I was in class. It was my management class was paying full attention, and I feel my pocket buzz. My check out my phone, and it's a text from my dad, and it's just the screenshot that he's
mm,
passed. And yeah, it took me for a spin. I literally grabbed all of my books and I left class. And I don't think the teacher knows why to this day why I left. Um, but I remember just having my car keys and I just walked across campus, went right to my car and just turned on Eruption, turned on the entire, Van Halen Essentials. And I just remember sobbing. I'll be honest. I think there was a solid 30 minutes where I just couldn't believe it. I was
mm-hmm.
texting my dad and I was texting my mom and I gave him a call and I was just distraught because of just how much he's meant to me in my life and, growing up with, his music and just the inspiration he is. And it really took me for a spin. I just know the rest of that day was really rough.
Mm-hmm.
And my friends knew that too, because they knew how much Van Halen meant to my family, from going to the concerts, from the Smithsonian experience, especially. Just never thought there's two specific individuals that I remember exactly where I was and, the time of day and everything of when they passed. And it was Prince and it was Eddie Van Halen. And it just, it sticks with you, but, they sometimes talk about it, when you obviously have those, raw emotions about it, they obviously meant something to you. And obviously for all of us, Eddie had that for us. So,
And I'm assuming you guys are probably like me. My phone blew up.
Yep.
I mean, anyone who knows me,
Yeah, me too.
anyone who knows me, knows the depth of my love for Van Halen.
That's right.
And I mean, my social media blew up. My phone blew up. I mean, I had to turn everything on silent because I was just getting inundated from friends, which was great because, they were all checking in on me to see how I was doing
Yeah, right.
because they knew what a huge fan I was.
Exactly.
My boss even texted me and he just wrote, he's gone. Because he knew what a fan I was. I was like, yeah, I'm gutted. I'm gutted.
Isn't that amazing? The response afterwards was like that. I did, I was like you guys. The first thing I saw was I opened my phone up and Wolfgang, first thing. Nobody, and then 5 minutes later, bam! I got hammered the rest of the day. And yeah, man. But then all the tributes afterwards, all of those signages and everything around the world, world and country, and it was. I don't know if it's just me because I'm such a huge fan and my eyes are so wide open to everything Van Halen, but it was a quite a tribute to him, if we don't ever have that tribute in a stadium or whatever, we had a heck of a few days there where he was everywhere.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
That was amazing, man. It's such a crazy thing. That one of the funny stories, you know, you think back about the day we went to the Smithsonian. One of the funny stories is I get on my plane out of Huntsville, which is a pretty. We have a because we're military and all that. We have an airline. I think it's Continental that goes over to DC, real easy for us. And I get on that plane, and I've got one of my books with me, one of the Van Halen photo books, one of those Lowe's Hours books, I think. And she goes, "Is that Eddie Van Halen?" And I'm like, "Yeah." She goes, "I love Eddie Van Halen." I said, "Yeah." She goes, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "What are you doing with Eddie Van Halen?" And I said, "I hope I'm going to meet him today." And she said, "You're going to meet Eddie Van Halen?" I was like, "I think so."
Awesome.
That's awesome.
And sure enough, man, it happened. It was amazing, you know, the whole knowing how fortunate we were, you know, to be, you know, walk in that door and that to happen. You know, that thing's got almost 10 million views now. It was part, as I probably said, part of the exhibition at the Met. Did you guys go to it?
No.
Yeah, I went to that.
You didn't go to it?
Yeah,
No.
Yeah. What'd you think, Jeff, of the guitar?
It was amazing. I spent the whole time just standing, you know, circling it, taking pictures,
no.
trying to get every nook and cranny of it, like everybody else.
Right.
I didn't care about anything else in there.
Right. That's so funny, right?
Just beelined right to it. So
Yeah, I took a million photos, man. I took my best camera and I shot as many shots as I could. I've got some really high definition shots of it with nobody behind the glass, you know, where I could really,
that was tough to do.
trying to get a shot of it where you didn't have anybody behind it. But I hung out a lot, so I eventually got it, you know, and I was there for 2 days. I went up and a friend of mine lived in the Broadway area, and I crashed at his place, and it was in August, I think. And that was my last trip to New York City before everything went in the gutter as far as our moving around the country goes. And but it was a great event. It was something that seeing all those things together was shocking. You know, I mean, seeing all those historic instruments that we listened to on those records.
Yeah, it's crazy that they let so many people just bring their guitars there. I don't know how they transfer everything back and forth to all the owners. It's risky.
I've heard that they carried the Frankenstein was carried cross country, and I don't know if this is true, but I just heard this that they two people followed that thing all the way across the country. There was somebody, and they probably carried, I don't know whether they carried it commercial or what they did, but I'm sure they were very, very careful with it.
Yeah, you'd have to. I mean, that guitar is too iconic,
right?
And
although the story that Brad Pulinski and them told me was that they were doing a photo shoot one day, and they said, "Ed, bring some guitars with you." So he goes and gets a Frankenstein, and he's getting in a pickup truck, and he takes the Frankenstein and just tosses it in the back, like it's just like a shovel.
Yeah, and I think Wolfgang has told stories about that as well, where we're in the studio and he just throws it on the sofa, no big deal,
right?
And everyone's like, "Well, what are you doing? You don't throw that guitar."
Right. It's such an icon. It's so weird that it was this $150, $180 guitar. Really, for the parts that he made became this priceless instrument. It's such a wild thing, man.
Completely tailored to what he wanted it to be.
Right, which has changed the industry. We all know that guitar industry, the whole Charvel explosion. I mean, Charvel, the whole, I was with Grover Jackson one night, and I had the opportunity to spend about 3 hours with Grover Jackson, just me and him in his shop. It was another shocking opportunity for me. And I asked him every question that you would ever want to ask him about the guitar behind you, Jeff, the Concord, of course. I had to know all about that. I had to know about his things with Eddie, the good and bad. And, Grover told me, he said, everybody in this industry, I don't care who you are, should thank Eddie Van Halen. And this is Grover telling me this, just me and him, should thank Eddie Van Halen for what he did.
Yeah.
because of how he changed everything.
Yeah, definitely.
All the people that, Chris Gill said that, like so many of us have built a career in music around the inspiration that he gave us.
Yeah.
There's
Unbelievable.
So many companies, so many people. You go to the NAMM show, you see something that's Eddie Van Halen inspired, whether, we know. We'll be walking there and go, that's an Eddie Van Halen, that's an Eddie. A lot of people don't know that, but all of us know. We've watched it the whole time. We watched everything he said and done. So we know what he had, a little thing in everywhere you go. It's an amazing impact that he had. And his whole personality, just, I think, the Smithsonian was such a great example of the whole guy.
Mm-hmm.
We got to see him play.
Yeah.
We got to see him talk. He told us things that he hinted about, not always told the truth about, but told the truth on that stage that day. He finally talked about the Variac and the level he had it at and all that, things that he finally straight from him. No more, guessing.
Right.
Yeah, he could have probably went on forever with us, the technical stuff that he had, done over the years. And I'm trying to, that's one of the things I tried to do when I was in LA this last time, was to get a little more detail on his history. The home prior to the childhood home, there was a home that was an interim apartment that I filmed while I was out there. I went to the place where he bought the destroyer, the shark. I found the building that was in. I have interfaced with a lot of the original people that worked with him. I've got lots of information and numbers to call for other people that were there, people that we know from the Van Halen documentary, the one that the news desk put out years ago.
Yep.
So I've got a lot of those people. They're still around. They're getting older. So, we're trying to find out more secrets that we don't know. And he left a lot of stuff behind that we still don't really know.
Yeah.
I can't imagine.
Yeah. I'll tell you guys one that blow your mind. Are you ready for this?
Go ahead.
You're gonna blow the internet up, but I'm just saying this is what I was told. All right. Here goes. We were all familiar with the cabinets that were stripped with, the speaker cabinets, the Marshall cabinets without anything on them, right?
Yep.
All right. We're all familiar that there was two types of speakers in those, right?
Yep.
There's the silver cone and a regular Celestion. Everybody says the silver cones were JBL and the regular ones were Celestians. I was told that the silver cones were not JBL and that they were actually dummies and they were actually Radio Shack speakers.
That was the secret to the tone.
The secret to the tone was they mic'd the regular 57 on one corner, like the center and the edge. Probably this is what I'm kind of like looking back at it. If you look at the photo that Don Landy put out there, that's in Greg Renoff's book, I think it is. It shows a single cabinet that's a slant, but you only see it from the side. You see two mics on it, right? So you don't know if one of those was the JBL, right?
Right.
Okay. So then if you look at the pictures from 1980, where Eddie's sitting on top of that same cabinet with the Chris Holmes Destroyer, you see two Celestians, and it's sitting in an exact same spot with the same gobos as the Van Halen of one photo. So it's like they set the room up exactly the same again to do Women and Children first. So what's funny about that picture, though, in 80 is that they've got two things covering up the two lower speakers, and you can't see the two lower speakers. And I'm thinking to myself, is that on purpose? Probably. But that was something I was told by a local from that area. And so I went online and like Radio Shack speakers. I went on, eBay to see if there was anything that looked like this JBL, right? I'll go look it up. Look up 12-inch Radio Shack speakers. Just Google it and see if it
out there.
That's funny.
If it doesn't look a little bit like we think it might have been. Now that's an interview that's coming up. A guy that I interviewed, Kurt James, who was in Steeler at one point, and then he did the 30th anniversary tour with Alcatraz.
Very cool.
But anyway, he was around then, and he had some really cool tales that are going to come your way soon.
Who was the big guitarist? Who was the big guitar player that was at Steeler?
Ingve.
It was an Ingve. Okay.
In the early days, yeah. And Kurt, he plays that stuff like crazy. But Kurt's got a Destroyer too from that era, you know, and he's got a strip cabinet, but he can't verify whether it was one of the ones or not. And there's a couple I saw a couple out there. I actually saw 3 strip cabinets while I was out there. One, I'm 99% sure that one was where the Chris Holmes Destroyer exists. And it has the Van Halen logo on the back. It has Eddie's writing on the back. You know, where he put on the a lot of the things when he approved it, he'd say the shit or whatever, right? And on the back of that cabinet, it just says shit. where the Tolex is ripped in the back, he wrote it into it, and you can see that it's that same script from
That's awesome.
the 70s. Yeah. So yeah, a lot of that gear, you know, there's some of it just got dispersed between different people, and he got rid of a lot of that stuff, you know, after that first tour. So Chris Holmes had a lot of it. He may still have some of it. Him and Chris used to apparently swap gear, and those cabinets were part of that swapping.
That's awesome.
Maybe I haven't read the articles, but I haven't heard Chris Holmes talk that much about all the stuff he gave Eddie. Maybe he did, and I just didn't see it. But
yeah,
it doesn't seem like he talks about it all that much.
It's like he doesn't remember it that much.
Yeah,
it's kind of weird because you would think, you know, he would be pretty detailed, but there were people around Chris. Rusty Anderson, you know, plays with Paul McCartney.
Yeah,
he was in a band called Eulogy back then, and they had. Now this is a crazy thing about the Destroyer. There were 3 or 4 that came into that store apparently, and Rusty Anderson ended up with one of the other ones. So you have the Chris Holmes, the Shark, and you have one that Rusty Anderson had. And the other conflicting data that I found, or that people were saying, was that in one of the pictures that we see in the early days, that potentially that it was called, I call it the Tahitian village photo. It's the one where Eddie's playing the Destroyer, and it's natural. It's one of the only photos you see of it natural.
Mm-hmm.
That guitar was actually ended up with Rusty Anderson, and that the Shark is a different one. But I don't know that for sure. I mean, we're still trying to track that down. What we need is raw, up close images of the grain from the original, the ones you can like where you can really, you know, that's out there though. You know, some kids got that photo.
That's right.
You know, somebody's got a photo of that guitar close up.
And look at all the unearthed stuff is starting to come out now. That just, you know, picture here, video there, audio here.
Right. Y'all saw that new 78 footage that came out from Niagara Falls.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not far from me.
Right.
I was there.
Right. That's an amazing piece. And, you know, I heard, it's another thing I heard was that Roth has some of this stuff hold up at his house. That's what I heard. I heard that John 5 said this somewhere, that he was over there and saw it.
Cool.
Now just gonna get John 5 on here and say, what the heck? Is that true? Is that true?
Yeah. Let John 5 answer some of the questions.
Right? Yeah, well, he's over there. You know, the funny part is I went by his house. So when I was out there, Ross' house, and usually when you go by his house, he's got these massive 12-foot gates with, you can kind of see them. But
I've been out there a couple times.
have you? Okay, so this time I went out there and the gate was wide open. And there was, I guess somebody was working on the yard or something, and I was like, gosh, I sure do want to walk there. I mean, I can just
knock.
I can just walk around the front door. Hey, you here or what?
Gotta cut the lawn.
Right. I just want to see the spot where I saw you on TV the first time, which was when he was doing an interview before the Unchained video. He was doing an interview with Jim Ladd, and they were down in the gardens at his house. And I thought that's
awesome.
Yeah, it's kind of like, oh, it's like the holy ground or something, being able to see that, know that they practiced there so much and all of that too. There's so many amazing stories, and the Smithsonian will stand as one of the ones for all time.
Yep.
And the 4 of us were lucky enough to somehow slip into that deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wasn't going to miss it for the world.
Right. You guys go back through just each one of you and just talk before we close out. Just give me an overview again of how you feel about that day and anything else you want to add to it. Jeff?
feel lucky to be a part of it. I mean, just to be actually even on the video. I mean, that was almost as good as meeting him, because it's like I was talking to him in front of all the world in a way. So it was a little nerve wracking when I heard my voice coming over the PA speakers. I was like, oh wow, how many people are going to see this? But yeah, it was just amazing. It's just one of those things you just cherish for the rest of your life. I mean, it's priceless. So
Right.
just
The day you die, you'll still know that you had that opportunity in front of the entire world. I
yeah.
mean, over almost 10 million people have seen you ask that question. All you guys,
Yeah.
Crazy.
isn't that crazy? 10 million people seen you guys ask these questions. I'm glad you didn't know you're going to see 10 million people going to see that at the moment.
No, I didn't even know it was going to be on the internet. I'm like, oh man.
Right.
Right. We didn't know that, did we? Didn't know it was going to be on. That's crazy, right?
Yeah, for me, I echo everything that Jeff said. But I certainly felt kind of in a tough spot because I was asking the first question.
Oh man.
And the fact that Ed and I had that moment of banter at the very beginning where I stand up and I said, and because they just had turned up the lights, and I said, over here, Ed. Ended up looking over there, and he goes, nice shirt.
That's right.
And I said, great album. So to have that banter, with my one of my musical heroes,
Right.
I mean that was priceless. And then to get to be able to meet him and just say thank you. Yeah, I felt privileged to be able to be a part of something that was so special to him. Because this was really a special event for him, and this was something that they ended up also doing and having that interview that made it nice for those of us who got to attend and the millions that have been able to watch what we got to witness
In person.
I felt honored to be able to be a part of that.
It was
in a small, tiny way.
Well, yeah, we witnessed history.
Yep.
Which I've said to my wife and other people, it was like if we went there to see Einstein, honored at a time, and they filmed it or something. The entire world would watch it for eternity, possibly.
Look at it too. I think that's Ed's last interview.
Right. I mean, he did as far as alive anything. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and that will live on for eternity. And we were there. We were part of that.
The great thing is everybody who saw it, even people that weren't there, everybody just loved it. They thought it was like the best Eddie interview that they've seen. It was just universally loved by everybody who saw it. Right. So
I can't tell you how many people I have literally. I'll share a quick story about this. Yeah. I've had more people out of the blue contact me that I haven't spoken to in years.
Mm-hmm.
John, I just saw you on this video. Okay, but I had one guy from college. Now, mind you, this guy was at college for one semester and then went home.
Mm-hmm.
This was in '83. I hadn't seen or spoken to him since then. He saw me on that video and couldn't believe that I was still the Van Halen fan that I was in college as a full-grown adult. He had his daughter, find me on Facebook. She private messaged me, and him and I are now back in contact. Just over the fact that he saw this video of Ed, which I've had more people out of the blue, like my mechanic. When does your mechanic ever call you? Okay, that you're usually calling them for something, but he calls me up out of the blue and go, "Hey, what's up, man?" He goes, "John, I just saw you ask Eddie a question. Is that really you?" I said, "Yeah, that's me."
That's amazing.
So, I mean, it's had a real unique effect. I mean, of people that I wouldn't expect to hear from, all of a sudden they're saying, "I just saw you on this video."
That's such a cool thing. Guys, I think there was maybe 10 questions that were asked?
I think 6.
I think it was 6.
Oh, wow. Okay. Wow. That's amazing.
I think the one thing for me is just being able to take a step back and just say, like, just how grateful I am that they held this opportunity and that we could be a part of it. You know, we've talked a lot about how, you know, the humble origins, you know, that Eddie is, and, you know, seeing how much he loves Wolf, and, you know, the father figure that he was for him, and to see that transpire even with him with now with his own music, you know, and the innovation that he's doing by, you know, everything on those albums for Mammoth, WVH are all him. It's just really, you know, a cool thing to see that the legacy is continuing in a different way. You know, Van Halen is going to be Van Halen for all of us, you know, for the rest of our lives. And this opportunity that we all had was, you know, the one we can all say we're, you know, grateful and lucky to have been a part. But it's cool to see that the longevity of the Van Halen genes are continuing. And, you know, obviously through Wolfgang, who rocks, man, Mammoth WVH, that is the way to go. It's just awesome.
It's a great show, right? And I saw him the other night, you know, and his vocal was so good. I was like, damn, dude, it sounds like it's so perfect. You know, like
Saturday.
Yeah, right. And it was just so good. And I've seen him 4 times now in the last few years. And I tell you, it's amazing to know that I saw him as a baby. You know, when Eddie first had him, we were all like, wow, Eddie had a baby. And now he's this kid. He's 30 what is he, 30 now?
Something.
Yeah, and he's rocking the world, man. And he's going out there and doing what his dad did, which is putting his head down and going out to work and doing his shows. And he's not taking a lot of breaks to, you know, do these albums in between. He's knocking them out in between. He's staying busy, and, you know, he's doing what his dad did, and he's going to be successful because he just keeps doing it, man. It's just awesome.
I can't wait for the second album.
Yeah, right.
It's crazy when he's just started playing with Van Halen. I think it was the 2007 tour, and there were a lot of people saying, "Oh, he's not really playing or singing. It's all tracks." They had no idea how great he was at every instrument.
Yeah. I was at that Atlanta, the first Atlanta show. I think I did VIP, which is when they were letting you go into the sound check and watch sound check. And when I went to sound check that day, it was just the 3 of them, and Wolfie was singing lead at that point.
Awesome.
And I think it was I'll Wait that he was singing or something. It was one of the songs. I can't remember exactly, but I do remember he was singing lead, and I was thinking, wow, this is awesome to hear him singing lead. And he's like 17 at the time, you know, and then you know, it was great to watch that interaction with their, you know, his uncle and his dad. So cool.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
One other thing about that, about the event,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you noticed the shirt Kyle was wearing.
Yeah, I did the 81 shirt.
That is actually my 1981 Fair Warning Tour shirt that I had, and each of my boys have worn that to a Van Halen show.
Oh, that's killer. Killer, man. 81, man. I don't know how many people know this because I sent a lot of people over here from my Instagram, but it's called Forever Unchained 1981 because of my, you know, inspiration from the Unchained video. But yeah, man, that tour, that look of that tour, the whole thing about it was so, you know, some people say tough, and I was like, yeah, it was pretty freaking cool looking, right?
Did you see the tour?
I saw 84. I didn't see it.
I saw the Fair Warning tour. It was incredible. I haven't seen a show yet that has come close to even topping that show. I mean, it was just phenomenal.
So you would say it was the best Van Halen show you ever saw?
Best show I've ever seen of anyone. I mean, that was my very first concert that I went to on my own.
Oh, yeah.
But I couldn't get tickets to the Women and Children First tour because they sold out. We were living in Los Angeles at the time.
Okay.
So the LA Forum had sold out 2 or 3 nights for the Women and Children First tour. And so I had to wait till Fair Warning came out. And then I got tickets for that show, which was the day after Michael's birthday. Okay, because they did 2 nights at the LA Forum. And I ended up getting nosebleed seats, just barely. I mean, and this was not through I mean, you had to go to the ticket line and wait in the giant line that went around the mall, and you waited.
Right. I remember.
But yeah, I mean, and I've only missed a couple tours in between there, but I've seen almost every tour since 81.
Yeah, that show, everybody that's been on that talks about 81 talks about it. They actually talk about two eras, 80 and 81. Everybody that I have one friend who was at 78, and he didn't know he was going to see Van Halen. He didn't even know. He knew a little bit about him, but he had no clue, and he ended up front row in front of Van Halen in 78. Got his mind blown off. And that for him was his thing. But then a lot of people say 80, 81 were the ones that changed their life.
Yeah, it was incredible.
Right.
Nothing else to say. It was just incredible.
Jeff, what was your first show?
It was 88, Monsters of Rock.
Okay. Which one we're at?
Rich Stadium in Buffalo.
Okay, I was at Memphis.
That was the first.
Yeah, it was Memphis to Liberty Bowl in the summertime. It was hot. Right. It was a good show, though.
I was living in Rochester at that time, Jeff, and I didn't get to go to that show because we just had our first son, and I just financially couldn't do it right at that point in time. But I saw the 5150 tour in Rochester, and then
that one.
All U812 in Rochester, and then for Unlawful, I saw Buffalo at the Odd.
Yep, I was there.
That was
Alice in Chains open.
Show. Yeah, Alice in Chains open, and it was just a great show.
95, y'all see 95?
Yep, Balance. I saw Balance in Buffalo and Rochester. I saw back-to-back nights.
98.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Saw 98.
Saw them here in Virginia. We had moved down to DC at that point.
Okay.
Saw the Gary tour.
I heard it was good. I didn't see it, but I heard it was great.
It was good. I was extremely frustrated with. That's when really ticket brokering was really starting to take on.
Mm-hmm.
When they announced that tour, I ended up, the day they announced the tickets, I went in and I was like right on time to get the tickets. They told me the entire pavilion was sold out at 10:01. I'm like, there is no way I know that pavilion is going to sell out that fast.
Right.
Well, come to find out, they only sold half of that pavilion. Okay, when I got there the day of the show. And so I had to buy a lawn seat. And then when we got there, only really section 100 and part of 200 were sold. Everything else was open.
Wow.
Oh, I was so mad.
That's insane.
I mean, it ruined the tour. It ruined the show because it just, you take all those people out of not being able to be there because they couldn't get a ticket. I mean, they said it was sold out inside of the pavilion, but it wasn't.
That's wild. Yeah, we were talking earlier about what if they would have gotten another shot at, another tour. You said you talked about the rumors that were happening. There was that. I mean, I had heard locally in Nashville from a friend that they had actually booked the arena there for 19, and then it didn't happen because of health issues. They were talking about there was that thing. It was a rumor about Foo Fighters and Van Halen. Apparently, that was possibly real, from what I've seen and heard.
I would have loved that. Oh, that would have been a good show.
Yeah, it would have been. It just, apparently, I guess, with his health situation, it sounded, at least from what I understand, it started to go bad and then just got all of a sudden way worse, and he might have, seemed like if a couple things didn't happen, he might still be with us, but it's just, how things kind of go downhill and then they can't really stop it. And then something, I think they had a stroke or something, and that was kind of the end. But yeah, he fought, he looked so good in like 15.
Yeah.
He looked great, and just, of course they probably hid everything else, but because there were a few photos that popped around that looked like a little concerning, but they were always hiding everything about that. But we know there's there is a ton of stuff that we don't know still about Van Halen, and that's one of the things I'm trying to do is find out more things that go way back and stuff in the middle and fill in some of these holes. There's things like, I was just in a museum this last week in LA called the Valley Relics Museum, which is the Girl from Hot for Teachers Brothers Museum, the detention teacher and Hot for Teacher, Lori, who's been on. And I walked in and they had the Western Exterminator guy from the 84 tour. They had a giant one in there.
That's awesome.
I was like, whoa.
I think there's actually, I remember I was on a business trip somewhere, I think San Jose or something like that. Where I actually saw one of those on the side of the road.
Yeah, they're still in business, from what I understand. Yeah, there's all kinds of things like that. One of my guests was talking about, wanting to find the backdrops from the 81 tour, things like that.
Yeah.
Now, Roth, this last week, Roth put out a podcast. I don't know if you guys listened to it, but he went very normal for a change and started talking about the history of Van Halen. And he dropped a couple of little nuggets, and one of them was that he has a lot of the outfits from the early days. And he was talking about how his arm will not fit in the leg of Eddie Van Halen's pants from the time. And he said, we had the outfits out, we might display them or something. That's what he said.
Yeah, I think they have one of his old set or pairs of pants at Atlantic City. The ones that are like white and black striped. I think those are on display there.
Yeah, I've seen those. Yeah, I've seen the ones in New York. There was one in set of Dave's in Times Square.
Yeah, I think the Hard Rock had the Hot for Teacher tuxedos.
Yeah, I've seen that up there too. Yeah, that's cool. There's some really neat stuff that's out there. And what happened to the 84 pants? What happened to the 84 jacket? What happened to all that stuff? I know that Roth would like auction stuff out for charity and things like that. But it'd be interesting to see. There's got to be just tons of stuff somewhere in a warehouse.
Well, I would really love for them to somehow dig into the vault and find us some quality live material from anywhere from 78 to 84.
Well, and this has been disclosed on my podcast, is that there was an album that they didn't release that was a bootleg that they actually tried to release it. And the guy that was on my podcast a while back, Mike Wolf, was part of a team of people, which included another guest, Craig Parker Adams, Mike Wolf, and then Dweezil Zappa was the kind of connecting point.
Okay.
So Dweezil, when they were doing Different Kind of Truth, Eddie asked Dweezil to try to find some of the old archival stuff from the bootlegs, because obviously Eddie didn't have the bootleg. I mean, he had probably the Gene Simmons demos, right? But we're talking about, deep cut stuff that he wanted to get a hold of. And so Dweezil knew Craig had some of it. And then Craig met Mike, and Mike had digitized these things years ago from the original sources. He had gone to all the Inner Circle people. And a lot of the stuff that you heard that got out in even the 90s came from like 3 people. Okay. And so anyway, this stuff gets out, ends up back at the Van Halen studio at 5150. And there's a thing on there that the Van Halens decide they want to release as a record. And it was going to be, instead of Tokyo Dome.
Oh yeah, I heard that story. Yeah.
It was going to be something else, right? It was going to be one of these early things. And apparently the engineer and I guess they were going back and forth with Roth about material. And I don't know whether that was the part that got stopped or the sound quality got stopped. But it was certainly probably based upon this being original, one generation off the board stuff. Good enough we would have bought it. I'll tell you. Some of this stuff, like the Pasadena Civic stuff, there's vinyl of that out there that you can get, and it's killer.
Of that album or that bootleg,
right? The album, there's vinyl of it, right? And it's one of the best recordings of Van Halen out there. It's been out there forever. I got it on cassette in the 90s from some buddies of mine, and I think it got out in the 90s. But there's some amazing archival things out there that if they would want to release it, they could. They could do a box set of this stuff.
I don't think any of that stuff's going to come out for a long time, though.
I hope like some of the outtakes, I'd love for them to release like outtakes of the albums, or like alternate.
Yeah, different.
That'd
Yeah.
be cool.
Yeah.
Like Led Zeppelin did.
Yeah.
Like Page did. Page was he's such an archivist, and cares so much about their legacy and really continues. I mean, obviously it's part of what makes them money to keep going, but I don't know if he needs money, but I'm just saying that Van Halen never really seemed to care about that part of it that much until this story came out that I ran into. And there's got to be some point where Roth starts thinking, like maybe he is. I don't know. From this podcast, you go listen to it, you kind of think maybe he's thinking about,
Yeah.
Is that episode 6?
It just came out. It's called.
Yeah, because I listened to episode 5, which was the comic book one.
It doesn't have an episode number. It just came out. Look for that. It's just I forgot what it's named, but it just hit, and it's like 15 minutes of him talking, and it's all about the early days, and he talks about what they would do to go to shows, all the details on hauling gear and the shows, and it's really like I'm like, wow, well, this is something I can actually get into because he's really concise for a change with it. He's not very concise.
Yeah, he's pretty tough to listen to sometimes.
He's everywhere all at once, right? And I mean, that's what makes him David Lee Roth. But it's also, interesting to hear him tell these stories and tell them in a concise way. It's like, wow, this is cool, man. Now, you guys have his book, Crazy from the Heat, because I've never had it.
Yeah, I got it.
I don't.
Is it a hard
Tough read.
Is it a tough read?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of all over the place, I think. But I mean, I read it was a long time ago. It was probably 15 years ago, maybe even longer.
I didn't know whether I needed to even try to find a secondhand and get into it or not. I think it's just hard to read or whatever.
Did you ever read the script of the movie he was going to make?
I didn't hear that. No.
Yeah, I knew he had the script, but I've never seen it.
Yeah, I read that too. It was actually pretty good.
Really?
It would have been a funny movie.
Was it going to be like a Hard Day's Night like that I've heard or not?
No, it was more of like a comedy.
Okay.
But
more like one of his videos.
It was very like, like the old David Lee Roth videos, that style.
Like California Girls and
like Yankee Rose. It was all those same characters.
Yeah, when the Sammy Hagar book came out years before, there was I don't know if y'all ever got that release of this. They came out on the internet and everybody cycled it around, but there was a full book, like transcript from a book that hadn't been released for Sammy Hagar. Eventually was released by Sammy Hagar, but edited down. And all of the details about the strife within the band are all in it. And it's all true. I mean, when the book finally came out, everything that was in that manuscript was in the book. Of course, not all of it, but most of it.
Oh, the Red Book?
Yeah, there was a transcript of that released on the internet, and I actually downloaded and printed the entire book. I think it was a chapter of it. Like it was like a pretty long chapter of this book, and it gets into all of the after Loeffler died and how much trouble that things happened with all the relationships within Van Halen once they had new management, and that's why the Hagar thing kind of plummeted. But yeah, it's amazing that the rumor that we hear, a lot of it was true, man. A lot of the details that we heard rumor actually turned out to be, like the Foo Fighters thing, we were just talking about it.
I will say if with that being the Foo Fighters, I think it is a cool resemblance though that Wolf was able to participate in the Taylor Hawkins tribute, and it was a beautiful tribute to Ed with the songs he played both in London and Wembley and both in California. Just amazing. It shows his true talent of just the Van Halen genes run deep. Let's put it that way. There's no other way to put it.
And he crushed it.
He did crush it. And, I laughed after that. I put up a little meme of Eddie's dad and him like pointing like something like that. And I put, I told you so. He's a Van Halen.
Yeah, boy, he
It was
just
amazing.
Yeah, his dad and his grandfather, would have been blown away. Grandfather would have loved it. Yeah, he would have freaking loved that. Oh,
Yep.
man.
Beautiful tribute to Ed. Even
Right?
a tribute to Taylor. You know,
Yeah,
just phenomenal.
it was
Great show all the way around.
a fantastic moment, man. You guys have anything else you want to talk about with that, Smithsonian?
no. I mean, I just
We covered it.
Yeah,
I mean, I think we covered it. I mean, but I'm just grateful we had the opportunity to be there.
yeah. I think we all, it's funny because even people that other than you guys that I have kind of brushed across and that were there that will probably maybe appear in the future in the next year that we do one of these, all had the same. There's something weird about the Van Halen fan mindset. We are on the same. Doesn't matter where you are.
It's hard to explain. It
We
really is
all
hard to
think
explain.
the same things.
Yeah.
We all get excited about the same things, the gear, the
Right.
stories. I think part of the fact that they were so secretive about everything makes it funner to find out the information. If they put everything out there, it would be like, okay, we already know this, but doing the research and hearing the stories, that makes it funner for everybody.
That's true. It does make for a great opportunity for people that want to go dig, and
Yeah.
and there's so much more really that as I go through some of the stories from the people at the time, a lot of them it feels like they want to tell their stories more. Pasadena in particular, there's such a love for Greg Renoff's book. Greg's a buddy of mine, and they loved the way that Greg put their community and that story together. They're very happy with how they were represented, how the story was told,
It's a great book.
how accurately it was told. Yeah, and a lot of things. I was just listening to it again this week, and they were talking about Roth a lot in that book, and I thought it was important to understand his side of his drive. Where that was a big part of their success was this character that he is. We talk about how wild and out of control his thing is, but he also had this thing where he knew what he wanted. He was telling people he was a rock star when he was going to be a rock star when he was 8 years old.
He's Diamond Dave for a reason.
Right, and he became Diamond Dave. If that doesn't tell you, this guy, he's just amazing. The story, just his story alone, much less the Van Halen story. Their stories are so amazing that they were and to come together like they did, and then have Mike to balance them out. It's just an amazing band, an amazing story, and so much more to learn too.
I think what I'm just super grateful about is besides even just this experience, you guys obviously have seen Van Halen 10 times more than I have, but in the 2 times I was able to see them, just being able to say, you got to see the person you've always wanted to hear live. And I think one of the coolest things as well, aside from, meeting Eddie, was, so I graduated this year from college and, or from 2022. And my parents surprised me with a cameo from Michael Anthony.
Oh yeah.
So, and the funny part was I was doing grad photos, and my grad photos was, I had a guitar that I bought out at college. That was a restoration piece, junky guitar, just used it for gigging around campfires, but had awful restoration process on it. Let's put it that way. And I was smashing the guitar, and it had 2022 grad on it. And we smashed the guitar, and then I get a text from my mom and dad, and they're like, look at your phone. And I'm like, what?
And watch this video and turn it up really loud.
And I had no clue. And so next thing you know, all of my buddies are standing around me with their cameras out. And I'm like, what is happening? Well, I turn it on. It's Michael Anthony saying, congrats on graduating. And, hey, man. And, he knew a little bit of blurb with me and, my music and stuff. And he goes, I graduated in accounting. He's like, you're the singing accountant. I think I need a guy like you. And so just kind of cool just to be able to piece together little pieces of Van Halen in, different ways. And, from going to see Mammoth live, my goal is to see every tour I can of his. I love his stuff. It's been a cool journey and just looking forward to what's ahead.
Yeah, I think that's what it's all about looking forward and I always feel like that Eddie gave us this desire to be the best we could be, you know.
Amen to that.
You know, I think that was you know, I don't know if it was he hit such a high mark, and then to even try to be near him or try to I don't know if it'd be near him, but try to hit your personal best. You know, I think he set a personal best, you know, and a best for a guitar that so many people have tried to not only emulate, but emulate in the way of their career, trying to, you know, become very conscious of the work that goes into it, you know. And he said that at the Smithsonian. You remember he said, you know, I think somebody asked about at the end, what about a band today? Why is it harder? So, or something to that effect. And he said, I don't, you know, think it's any harder. You just got to get out there and do the work, you know, kind of what he said.
Yep.
But yeah, he was an example for if you really want something, you know, look where he came from. You know, he came over with basically nothing and built a career that takes him from a house that's, you know, down in the valley with 900 square feet, a real small home up to the hills in just a matter of, you know, years.
Yep.
It's an amazing ascent. Thanks for being on, guys. I really good to see you guys after all these years again.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Maybe we can get back together at some future point. And, you know, there's EVH Con up there. I don't know if you guys have ever gone to that. Have you ever heard about that?
I haven't.
There's one in Connecticut.
Oh, really?
Road trip.
Interesting.
Here we go.
There's a bunch of guys in the East Coast, some friends of mine. They all have a get together up there. One is Lewis from Fairfield Guitar that did all the straps, the replica straps, the bomber strap, and the chain strap. And there's a music store up there that they do this at. So you could probably find, if you just search online, you can probably find some reference to it. And it's every year. They don't always announce it like way early, but they do it every year. And there's talk. We just had a talk on the 68th birthday podcast about doing it on the West Coast. One of the places that we could do it potentially is over there at that museum where I was telling you about with the Western Exterminator guy. That is Lori's brother's place, and we probably could get access to do something there, and like small scale at first, and maybe that's what kind of EVH Con East is. It's kind of like fans getting together, you know, all hanging out. It's not like a tribute. It's more like a hang for everybody.
It's awesome.
Cool.
And so we'll see how that develops. I mean, I'm trying to help. I like I told, I don't know how to do those things. I'd love to go, you know. so we'll see if we can get some people that can get that together. We can. The East Coast one definitely happens every year. I try to go, but I book a year out with my gigs, so it usually is booked after I book, and I never can go. So
Gotcha.
I'll have to try to make a point at some point to go up to the East Coast one. But thanks for being on, guys, and you know, let's stay in touch. And
For sure.
if y'all need anything, let me know, and I'll interlay some of the video and the photos that you sent me, and your personal photos, of course.
Awesome.
And it just be another document about one of the events that will go down in history, and we're all part of.
For sure. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for hanging out, man. Let me know, hit me up anytime.
Yep.
Sounds good.
Okay, see you guys.
Rest in peace, Eddie.
That's right, man. Thank you very much, y'all. See you later.
See ya.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye bye.